Welcome to the future of Renault EVs. In 2025, you'll be able to have the production version of these two concepts on your driveway. And they are the Renault 5 prototype and in the background, the Renault Forever Trophy concept. Renault 5 and Renault 4? Yep, Renault is going back to its past to find some inspiration from the 60s, 70s and 80s for its next generation electric cars. And what's wrong with that? After all, Fiat with the Cinquecento and Mini have made an absolute killing reviving beloved icons from the past. Let's start with the Renault 4, or the Forever Trophy, as this concept car is called. Now, forget about that monster truck concept car showmanship. Everything you see in gunmetal silver is going to be on the production car. So that clean surfacing, the proportions and the roofline, that's what you can expect to get. In terms of length, it's about the same length as today's Renault Clio, and that positions the Renault 4 perfectly. It's going to be a B-SUV, basically the electric equivalent of the Captur. So what connects the Forever Trophy to the original Renault 4? Launched in 1961, the 4L, or Quatrelle as it was known in France, was the world's first mass-produced hatchback. That's because the focus was all on practicality. The two-box design included a rectangular occupant space with lots of room for people and stuff. And its long travel suspension was perfect for ambling over rural roads and farmland. That's why Renault has reincarnated the 4 as a 4x4. Well, in looks anyway. There are a few design details inspired by the original 4. Most striking is the front end. The 1970s Quatrelle had two round headlamps bookending the grille and ringed in chrome. The Forever has the same graphic, but with matrix LED lamps at the extremes of this black panel. And see that illuminated Renault logo? New regulation means that can feature on the 2025 production version. Thankfully, Renault hasn't replicated the Quatrelle's tiny and slanted rear door, which was a pretty ugly graphic, but it has lifted some lovely design cues, that trapezoidal rear glass and those capsule vertical tail lamps. You can imagine between them where the cut line for the hatchback boot is going to go. And then you've got these 19-inch wheels in diameter. There's a lovely concept car touch in the middle there, built-in compressors. So from the cockpit, you can raise or lower the tyre pressures according to the terrain you're going over. Now, if you cast your mind back, you'll remember that the Quatrelle had asymmetric wheel arches. It had a squared-off effect at the rear and it was round at the front. Now, the Renault design team told me they've tried that on the production car design, but it doesn't work, it just looks weird. So don't expect that design cue to come back to the future. I know, enough design chat. You want to know about the specifications. Well, the Renault Forever Trophy, like the Renault 5 prototype, is built on Renault Group's new CMF-B EV platform. Basically, it's an electric car platform for small cars. And that means there's a 40 kilowatt hour battery hidden behind that sill protection. There'll also be a 52 kilowatt hour battery. Now, the bigger battery should be good for a range of about 250 miles. And up front, mounted in the nose, is an electric motor producing 100 kilowatts or 136 bhp, and it turns the front wheels. The original 5 made a real impression on me when I was growing up in the 80s, with its cheeky face and its super chic clean design. And it clearly wasn't just me. There was a version of this design sitting in the studio when Luca Di Maio became CEO in 2020. He took one look at this prototype and said, yes, we've got to build this. And that's why it's going into production in 2024. If you saw this prototype alongside the Mark II Renault 5, it would be like little and large. The prototype is much wider and it's 27 centimetres longer. Overall, it's 3.92 metres long. That's just a little bit longer than a 3-door Mini. Renault's designers say the 5's soul and spirit have been retained, and they're right. While the headlamp shape has changed, the welcome light show makes the LED matrix lamps wink, just like in one of the 5's historic TV ads. And the square shape of the original lamps are mirrored on the daytime running lights, positioned where the old car's fog lamps were. The charging port is here on the bonnet beneath this flap, though there's no guarantee it'll be sited there for production. From the side, the 5's origins are instantly recognisable thanks to famous details like that L-shaped rear pillar. I love the wheel at each corner stance, and they're topped off by really distinctive boxy wheel arches. I hope those wheel arches are on the 4 as well, because they will give it a lovely family look. The 5 has a lovely little hot hatch vibe, don't you think? One pure concept touch is that fabric roof, which extends all the way back to a little lip spoiler. Then you've got big, chunky 19-inch alloys and red badging peppering the car. Engineering Chief Gilles Le Bornier tells me it's going to be an agile urban car, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun to drive. The finished 5 is expected to have a 40 and 52 kilowatt-hour battery pack. Up front, there's a 100 kilowatt electric motor turning the front wheels. Not enough for a proper hot hatch? You're right, but stay tuned for the Alpine version. We reckon that will have the Megane E-Tex electric motor, and that puts out 160 kilowatts or about 215 brake horsepower. So there you have it, the new Renault 4 and Renault 5 in concept car form. When the production versions come, they'll be the electric equivalent of today's Captur and Clio. It's easy to see the REBORN 5 being a smash hit, like the REBORN Mini and REBORN Cinquecento. The 4, however, well, bringing it back was the brainchild of Renault CEO Luca De Meo, and it was a much tougher brief. I spoke to his big boss of design, Lawrence van den Akker, and he said, look Phil, the original 4 was not a cool car, and to be honest with you, it wasn't a good looking car. Well, I think his design team under Gilles Vidal has done a great job in terms of keeping the quirky characterful bits, but dumping the frumpy bits. So the final question is, what price are we going to pay? Well, it's always been Renault's intention to bring the 5 back at between 20 and 25,000 euros, making it an affordable EV. Expect the 4 to be closer to 30,000 euros. But either way, in these inflationary times, if Renault can bring them in at that kind of price, they could be onto a winner.